You can hear bronze singing before you understand what it means. The sound reaches you first as resonance, a deep, hollow note that vibrates through stone floors and up through your feet. Then comes the overlay, something that almost resembles a lyre if you didn't know better. Musical, deliberate, the kind of sound that makes guards stop talking and look toward the palace courtyard with expressions you can't quite read. You're standing in the Agora of Akragas, 560 BCE, and the crowd has gone still. Not silent, there's too much fear for silence, but movement has stopped. Children are being pulled close. Merchants have abandoned their stalls. Everyone is listening to the bull. It's been 3 days since they wheeled it into the square. Hollow bronze, life-sized, cast in sections and welded seamless. The craftsmanship is extraordinary. You can see that even from here. The anatomical precision of the flanks, the curve of the horns, the way light catches the polished surface. It sits on a stone platform, and beneath it, smoke rises from ventilation holes you didn't notice at first. The bronze is heating. You can see the air shimmer above it. The music continues. It shouldn't be possible. Bronze doesn't make music. Bronze makes noise, clanging, hollow percussion. But this is different. This is melody. Sustained notes that rise and fall in something almost like harmony. Someone near you whispers that it's a gift to the tyrant. Someone else says it's a tribute to the gods. Neither of them is looking at the small door in the bull's side. Neither of them is watching the guards who stand too close to it, listening with professional attention. The sound stops. The silence that follows is worse. What you're hearing is not music. What you're hearing is the result of acoustic engineering so precise, so deliberately cruel, that it would take modern sound analysis to fully map its mechanisms. But you don't need to understand resonance chambers and harmonic frequencies to know what's happening inside that bronze shell. You just need to watch what happens next. The small door opens. Steam pours out, thick and immediate. The guards step back. Something is dragged from the interior. Not carried, dragged, and dumped onto the stone. The crowd doesn't move closer. The crowd knows better. That thing that sounded like music was a man dying. The acoustic chambers inside the bull were designed to transform screams into something the tyrant Phalaris could listen to during meals. The bronze tubes running through the skull, the resonance chambers in the chest cavity, the angles of the internal surfaces. All of it calculated to turn human suffering into entertainment. The engineering was flawless. The sound was beautiful. The man is dead. His name was Perilaus. He was the inventor. He built the instrument of his own execution, and he did it eagerly because he thought it would make him rich. Let's go back 6 months. Perilaus arrives in Akragas with drawings, measurements, and a proposal. He's a metalworker from Athens, skilled enough to have a reputation, but not wealthy enough to retire on it. He's heard things about Phalaris. Everyone's heard things about Phalaris. The tyrant of Akragas has a problem with dissent, and Perilaus has a solution. The problem is this: public execution is effective but inelegant. Crucifixion takes too long. Beheading is quick but unremarkable. Burning works, but the screams are unpleasant. They disturb the peace. They make people uncomfortable in ways that undermine the deterrent effect. Fear is useful. Chaos is not. What Phalaris needs is a method that transforms suffering into spectacle. Something that can be watched without moral discomfort. Something that separates the viewer from the victim so completely that empathy becomes impossible. Perilaus understands this. His proposal is elegant. A bronze bull, hollow with a door in the side. The victim is placed inside. A fire is lit beneath. As the bronze heats, the interior becomes an oven. Death is certain but gradual. Minutes, not seconds. Long enough for the lesson to be clear, but here's the innovation. The bull is also a musical instrument. Perilaus has designed a system of tubes that run from the interior chamber through the head and exit through the nostrils and mouth. When the victim screams, and they will scream, thermal injury guarantees it, the sound is forced through these tubes. The tubes are sized and angled to filter specific frequencies. High-pitched cries of pain are dampened. What emerges is lower, smoother, almost melodic. The bronze itself resonates, adding harmonics. The overall effect is that of a wind instrument being played by invisible hands. The victim becomes the instrument. Their suffering becomes music. The tyrant can listen without guilt because what he hears is not human. Phalaris is delighted. He approves the commission immediately. Perilaus is given access to the palace, forges, unlimited bronze, and a team of assistants. The work takes 4 months. The welding alone is an achievement. No seams can be visible from the outside or the illusion breaks. The internal acoustic system requires precision, measured in finger widths. The tubes must be smooth. The angles must be exact. Resonance chambers must be positioned to amplify certain frequencies and dampen others. Perilaus tests the acoustics using animal cries, wind instruments, his own voice projected into the chamber before it's sealed. He makes adjustments. He smooths rough edges. He polishes the interior surfaces so that heat distribution is even. He's proud of this work. It's the best thing he's ever made. He brings the finished bull to Phalaris on a cart pulled by 6 oxen. It weighs nearly a ton. The tyrant inspects it personally, walking around the bronze form, running his hands along the flanks, peering into the interior through the still open door. He asks technical questions. Perilaus answers them all, explaining the acoustic principles, the heat distribution, the expected timeline from insertion to death. Phalaris asks, does it work? Perilaus has not tested it with a living human. He says this. He says the principle is sound, the engineering flawless, but a full demonstration requires... He trails off. Phalaris says, demonstrate. There's a moment where Perilaus doesn't understand. Then he does. The guards are already moving. They take him by the arms. Not roughly, not yet. Phalaris is speaking, his voice pleasant, almost friendly. He's explaining that craftsmanship must be verified, that the first trial of any execution method should be conducted by its creator. That this is tradition, really, precedent, nothing personal. Perilaus begins to scream before they put him inside. The screaming doesn't stop when the door closes. You can hear it clearly at first, raw, human, unmistakable. Then the fire is lit, the bronze begins to heat, and slowly, gradually, the quality of the sound changes. The frequencies shift, the harshness softens. The screams become something else. Not speech, not music, but something between. The tubes do their work. The resonance chambers amplify and filter. What emerges from the bull's mouth and nostrils is a sound that could almost be mistaken for a religious ceremony. Almost. Phalaris listens with professional attention. He's making notes. After several minutes, he signals to the guards. They open the door early. Perilaus is dragged out, still alive but barely. His skin is blistered across every exposed surface. His vocal cords are damaged from screaming. He can only make clicking, gasping sounds now. The heat has cooked him from the outside in, but not enough to kill. Not yet. Phalaris has him thrown from the cliffs. It's a mercy in context. But the mercy isn't for Perilaus, it's for the acoustic system. Phalaris doesn't want the maiden voyage of his new instrument to end in death. He wants it to end in a lesson about hubris, about the dangers of selling tools of torture to tyrants. The bull is not ready for actual executions yet. It needs to remain pristine, unmarked, ready. The lesson is heard. Word spreads through Akragas, then through Sicily, then across the Greek world. The man who built the bronze bull died inside it, but not completely. He died enough to prove it worked. The story is perfect. It has symmetry. It has justice of a kind. It makes people nod and say, that's what happens when you help tyrants, and feel satisfied that the universe has balance. But that's not the actual lesson. The actual lesson is much simpler. The bull works. Over the next 15 years, Phalaris uses it approximately 60 times. We know this because later historians working from palace records that survived the tyrant's eventual overthrow documented cases. The number is probably conservative. Some executions weren't recorded, some records were destroyed, some victims were erased so thoroughly that their names never made it into any archive. The bull becomes infrastructure. It's not deployed randomly, it's used according to a logic that makes perfect sense to Phalaris and his administrators. Political dissidents are the primary category. Then come thieves who've stolen from the temple treasury. That's technically treason, so it qualifies. Then foreign spies. Then people who've insulted the tyrant in public. Then people who've insulted him in private but been reported. The categories expand. This is how systems work. Once the mechanism exists and proves effective, applications multiply. Someone needs to be made an example of. The bull. Someone needs to confess to something before they die. The threat of the bull is usually sufficient, but if not, the bull itself. Someone just needs to disappear, and the disappearance needs to mean something. The bull, and announce it afterward. The acoustic feature remains central. Phalaris regularly holds meals in the courtyard while executions are in progress. Guests report later, years later, when it's safe to report such things, that the sound was indeed musical, that it was possible to hold conversations while it was happening, that the bull seemed to be singing, and that the singing was not unpleasant. The psychological effect on the population is exactly what was intended. Fear, yes. But fear combined with aesthetic distance. The bull makes death into art. It makes suffering into something that can be appreciated from a safe distance. It creates a category of violence that doesn't feel like violence because the primary sensory input is beautiful. This is the innovation. This is what Perilaus actually invented. Not a method of execution. Humans have always been creative about killing each other. He invented a method of moral separation, a way to inflict maximum suffering while minimizing the psychological cost to the inflictor and the witnesses. The bull doesn't hide the death. It transforms it. It makes it consumable. We know some names, not all. Most victims of the bull were erased successfully, but some survived in fragments of testimony, in records kept by families, in stories that persisted despite official attempts to bury them. Megacles, a grain merchant who objected to tax rates and said so in the Agora. 3 hours in the bull. The guards reported afterward that the acoustic system performed flawlessly throughout. Timon, a poet who wrote verses comparing Phalaris unfavourably to a rabid dog. 2 hours. He stopped making sounds after 90 minutes, but procedure required the fire to continue burning for the full duration. The bull sang anyway. Apparently bronze resonates even without active input, once it's hot enough and the wind moves through the tubes correctly. Philon, a former general who commanded troops during the war against Syracuse, suspected of planning a coup. No evidence was ever presented. 5 hours. This was excessive and everyone knew it. But Phalaris was making a point about military loyalty. The point was received. No further coups were attempted during his reign. An unnamed woman. Records describe her only as the foreign one. Possibly a spy, possibly a prostitute who'd heard something she shouldn't have. 1 hour. Brief by the bull's standards. The records note that female voices produced particularly effective resonance in the higher chambers. This was mentioned clinically, as an observation about acoustic properties. 2 brothers whose names weren't recorded, executed together one after the other, for reasons no source explains. The second brother was forced to watch the first before being placed inside himself. This wasn't cruelty for its own sake, this was data collection. Phalaris wanted to know if the anticipation of specific pain increased the intensity of the initial response. The guards reported that it did. The second brother began screaming before the door was fully closed. Each of these cases was documented because they were considered noteworthy. Either the victim was important enough to remember, or the execution had some technical aspect worth recording. The mundane cases, the routine applications of the bull to routine problems of governance, those are lost. We know they happened. We know the bull was in regular use for over a decade. But the names are gone. The reasons are gone. What remains is the mechanism and the knowledge that it was used. Phalaris falls in 554 BCE. He's overthrown by Telemachus, who leads a popular revolt. The specific details are unclear, but what matters is that Phalaris loses control of the military. Without the military, a tyrant is just a man. He's captured. The question becomes, what do you do with a fallen tyrant who has an execution device sitting in the city square? The answer is obvious, inevitable, dramatically satisfying. The sources agree on this. Phalaris dies in the bull. His own instrument, his own innovation, justice. achieved through the same mechanism he used to enforce injustice. The stories all emphasize this symmetry. They want you to feel that the universe is balanced, that evil gets what it deserves, that the bull was somehow a trap that always intended to catch its creator. But Phalaris didn't create the bull. Perilaus did, and Perilaus was already dead. The bull didn't belong to either of them. It belonged to the state, to the mechanism of power, to the infrastructure of terror that existed before Phalaris and continued after him. Telemachus uses it too, briefly, carefully, before public sentiment forces him to decommission it. But he uses it. Because once a tool exists, once it's proven effective, once the precedent is established, someone will use it. The bull survives. It's not destroyed after Phalaris' death. It's taken as a trophy displayed in the Temple of Athena, as a warning about tyranny. Then it's moved to Carthage as spoils of war. Then it's taken to Rome. The Romans are fascinated by it. They document its construction, its acoustic properties, its history. They don't use it. Roman execution methods are already sufficiently refined, but they preserve it. They understand its value as a symbol. The bronze bull disappears from historical record in the 3rd century CE. It may have been melted down for weapons during one of Rome's many wars. It may have been lost in a shipwreck. It may still exist, corroded and unrecognizable, in some Mediterranean archaeological site, waiting to be excavated and misidentified as a religious statue. But the principle survives. The mechanism survives. The knowledge that it's possible to engineer systems that transform suffering into something consumable that survives intact. You're not listening to ancient history. You're listening to a design document. The Brazen Bull was a prototype, a proof of concept. It demonstrated that you can industrialize cruelty, optimize it, make it efficient and aesthetically acceptable. Every refinement of violence that came after owes something to Perilaus' insight. That separation is the key. That if you can place enough distance between the inflictor and the victim, physical distance, sensory distance, moral distance, then anything becomes possible. The acoustic chambers that turned screams into music are the same principle as bureaucratic language that turns people into case numbers. The bronze shell that hid the victim from view is the same principle as administrative processes that hide suffering behind paperwork. The beauty of the craftsmanship is the same principle as the aesthetic refinement of any system that needs to be acceptable to witnesses. Phalaris understood this. He understood that people will accept almost any level of violence if it's presented correctly, if it's beautiful, if it's justified, if it's happening to someone else and you can't quite see the details, and what you can hear sounds almost like music. The bull is singing right now, not literally. The bronze is long gone, melted and reformed and scattered across centuries. But the system it represented is still operational. It's been upgraded. The engineering is more sophisticated, the separation between victim and witness is wider, the music is better, you just have to know what to listen for.